All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
One of the core themes of this show is that the view, desire, lifestyles, and more of the majority of the American public is not represented in the highest institutions of American life. Hollywood, mainstream media, the U.S. government, we are largely run by the same professional managerial class who dominate the commanding heights of American culture and government. They are more likely than you or I to vote. They are more likely to consume and therefore influence the news. They're more likely to donate, call their senator. They run everything. And it's for that very reason that their specific peccadillos and tastes matter so much to all of us. They may only be like 20% or so of the U.S. population, but when they run everything, it has a disproportionate impact on the way that we all live our lives. That's why you probably notice I've been doing everything in my power to expose this class's insanity around coronavirus, because I live in Washington, D.C., the heartbeat of the PMC, and I see how they're clinging to pandemic restrictions to mask their own misery and insanity could have ramifications for us all in U.S. government policy. Now, you probably noticed that the CDC changed its recommendations around mask wearing outside, and for those Americans who are fully vaccinated gathering indoors with other fully vaccinated Americans. Obviously, this matters, given that 150 million Americans have already gotten at least one dose of the vaccine already. But what the CDC didn't realize is that over the last year, because of Trump and Rachel Maddow and MSNBC science worship, the so-called most educated, rational, and fact-based people in the country are not moving on anytime soon. DC's Mayor Muriel Bowser saw the CDC's guidance. Like any public official should, she issued new guidance on May 1st, saying that full vaccinated people would no longer have to require to wear masks indoors or outdoors with others who are fully vaccinated. In other words, the whole reason we all got vaccinated. But that common sense wasn't enough. So the people here in our fair city revolted. They called the manager, literally, and they exclaimed, "This is not safe!" And a mere 24 hours after rescinding DC's mask mandate, again, in line with CDC guidelines and science, not to mention the public case for getting vaccinated in the first place, DC's mayor had issued a new order bringing back the mask mandate, saying, quote, "Customers will still be required to wear a mask inside regardless of their vaccination status." I love this because it cuts across a couple of theories. One of them was actually the right-wing theory, that politicians will never give up power once they have it. There's some truth to that. But here you have a mayor that wants to, quote, follow the science on masks, wants to let her citizens go free, but they say, oh, hell no. Not only are we not going to continue to wear masks, but everyone around me better be doing so too, regardless of vaccination status. This is what a professional managerial class uprising looks like, folks. They're not giving those masks up ever. And that's fine for them personally, but it has huge ramifications for the rest of us. This isn't just me cherry picking. Take a look at this. Brookline, Massachusetts, the second most educated town in the United States, has decided to overrule CDC guidance in their own town and keep their outdoor mask mandate in place despite high vaccination status. That is right. This is even crazier than the DC order. They say everyone must wear a mask outdoors, regardless of your vaccination status. I ask again, what was the point of getting that vaccine? Are these fine gentlemen and ladies of academia telling us they don't believe the science and that vaccines don't work? Because I'm getting really confused here. Unless, of course, it wasn't about the science and it's about a cultural affinity for pandemic restriction as a means of hypothetically owning Trump or Ron DeSantis in Florida. You may say to me, Saagar, none of this matters. Why do you care? Or you only care because you live in DC. Why should I? Here's what I would say. People said the same things about college campuses 5 years ago. Guess what? Those people grew up. Now they work at the New York Times, Fox, CNN, and the government. Now they run You're in My Life with their insane ideology. This is the same thing. These people educate our kids. They are making our laws. They are deciding what you watch or you read in the news the next day. None of it is about the following the science. All of it is about obedience to a set of rules and regulations that they have decided is good for everybody. If it was the case of just doing it for themselves, I truly would not care. But that's not enough for them. It's about control for everyone else. And guess what? These follow the science idiots are not just hypocrites themselves. They're actually hurting the case for Americans to get vaccinated. Friend of the show, Derek Thompson, wrote an excellent new piece for The Atlantic in which he explores vaccine hesitancy, some of the ways that it might be solved. He interviewed vaccine hesitant people. He found a few common themes. Guess what one of the universal reasons for not getting vaccinated was among some Americans? People told Thompson that they hate the Democratic liberal public nexus so much they have decided, screw them. I'm not getting vaccinated because those people want me to so badly that their so-called religious devotion to pandemic restriction so fundamentally conflicts with my own values in my life that as a personal message, I'm not going to do it. I understand this well. This is the exact same sentiment that led millions to vote for Trump. Hatred for the liberal intelligentsia alone is probably the most powerful and potent political force in America. If you take that and you combine it with some good policy, you could win in a landslide election. But I digress. The key point is this. I'm not just dunking on ordinary citizens with no power. I'm showing you two things. That the people who run our society themselves are just as, if not more crazy than people who insist COVID is fake and have been acting that way since day one. But two, that their very actions and attitudes around COVID are becoming the direct reason for opposition to getting vaccinated amongst a large segment of our population. If you care about Americans getting vaccinated, the best thing that you could do is say, cut this shit out. But these people won't listen. The first people in human history to overrule their own leaders to keep restrictions on the rest of us and themselves. Let that one sink in. Because today it's Washington, D.C. and Brookline, Massachusetts. Tomorrow it will be Boston, San Francisco, and Chicago. And the day after that, Atlanta, Phoenix, and the next thing you know, the White House. That is the worst possible outcome that we should avoid at all costs. And I really love this, Crystal, because there is a theory amongst a lot of libertarian activists and more who are like, these governors are never going to give up power. It's like, no, like de Blasio wants to open up New York like tomorrow. Right. You know who are the people who don't want it to open up? These people, they're crazy.
The right didn't count on a grassroots uprising of the PNC demanding
we will keep these masks on until the day we're done. And you know, like you said, you want to keep wearing masks? All good. I don't care. But it's one of those things where they want to keep it on for everybody. The Brookline one is just...
it reminds me of, you covered Rose McGowan saying that Democrats are in a cult, but they don't know it. That's what this reminds me of, because it's like, and it's also it's a very authoritarian instinct. You said these are the first people in human history to like demand restrictions from the government.
Restrict me, baby.
But it's the same thing with them calling for more censorship crackdowns from social media. It's like this same authoritarian impulse. And look, I don't want to judge people too harshly. These are unsettling times. People are grasping for meaning and power in whatever ways that they possibly can. But to your point about the ramifications of this, there's actually a new piece in the Times this morning about what would be effective to reduce vaccine hesitancy. What they found, West Virginia piloted this program of like, we'll give you $100 if you get vaccinated. That actually works really well with Democrats. And you know what works well with Republicans? Saying you won't have to wear your mask anymore. That was the single most effective messaging to reduce vaccine hesitancy and actually get Republicans, and they're overwhelmingly the ones, young Republican men, are the biggest issue right now in terms of actually getting the vaccine. They were the people who responded most to that message. So if you think that what you're doing is good for pandemic abatement, you're just wrong about that. If you care about science, that is not what the science says. So again, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. I don't care. Do whatever you want. It's fine. But demanding that your locality go against science and continue to require masks outdoors, you're actually really damaging the case for people to go out and get vaccinated so we can reach herd immunity and get this thing under control so we don't ever go back to where we were last year.
What these people don't understand is how much people hate them. Actually, you pointed to, didn't you, that one article which is like, I'm not getting vaccinated because the libs want me to, and that's enough for me.
Yes.
And I was like, I get it. Like, I'm not saying that I think it's dumb. You're owning yourself in order to own the libs. But guess what? That's a powerful force, man. 75 million people just voted for Trump. I totally understand that impulse.
That sentiment is basically all the Republican Party is about, right? That is the core of Trumpism. And like you said, it was actually enough, even in spite of the pandemic and hundreds of thousands of Americans dying and all of his ridiculousness, for him to come within 40,000 votes of getting reelected again. That animus, the fact that he would make these people lose their minds, and the people with power who share this ideology, which is basically like everyone in power that shares this ideology, that was all it took. That just them freaking out and him making them totally melt down. That was the single most compelling thing about it.
So that's what these people don't understand, is that whenever people in red states or elsewhere, they see, and in Florida, I was just in Florida, and they understand the mockery of being like, oh, they think we're dying down here and all of this. They know how that you're perceived, how they've been targeted. This isn't about DeSantis. I'm saying people there who like the way that the restrictions are, which is much looser than around here, are like, this. It's ridiculous the way that we've been spoken about in national media, and that abounds across the entire American South and in the West. They know how you feel about them, and they hate you. And there's, I don't blame them. I hate them too. And so whenever it comes to their feeling, which is like, I am not going to do this specifically of the way that you're behaving. And especially if they see you and you're the one being like, go get vaccinated, and you're not going to change your whole life, and you can't get rid of any of the behaviors like you were talking about. If the number one way is to stop wearing masks, I think that sounds pretty important relative to making sure majority of the U.S. population gets vaccinated, or as much as humanly possible, because otherwise you're in for, we are really just, we're going to have, like I said from the beginning, we're a bifurcated society where the PMC and everybody gets vaccinated, and lower middle class Americans, black, brown, and white, will all not get vaccinated because they don't have as much trust within the system. And then the PMC will lecture them and be like, you idiot rubes, as they're dying and they won't want to pay for their health care more. I can see it coming from a mile away, and already the script is being written.
It's like the story of America.
Yeah, it really is. All right, I'm looking forward to your radar next, Crystal.